The quest of Africa to industrialize should not depend on anybody's decision, but Africa's decision.
We don't believe in a big brother mentality of the USA. Imperialism, wherever it raises its ugly head, must be dealt with. We are not the kind to bow.
You can see what they are trying to do to eliminate my good friend Ibrahim Traore. Survived many assassination attempts.
Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
Western media loves portraying Africa as a place that is hopelessly impoverished and always prone to conflict. And while there are certainly issues, I believe that Africa is the future.
The quest of Africa to industrialize should not depend on anybody's decision, but Africa's decision. And we must industrialize, because what sense does it make that we produce? We have a lot in terms of raw materials, and in fact there is a contradiction. Africa is very wealthy. On the other hand, it is also very poor. Africa is not there for anybody's taking. It's as if we are there just for anyone to come and pick and do whatever they want with us. We are not there to be influenced to take a certain line or the other line because somebody has decided so and because somebody is powerful. So Africa must be that powerful to make sure that we do what has been determined by ourselves to be important to us and our people.
We don't believe in a big brother mentality of the USA. Imperialism, wherever it raises its ugly head, must be dealt with. We are not the kind to bow to the superpowers. We are the ones who say to the superpowers, we are ready to work with you, but we are going to work on our terms and we'll put our country first. And not what the UK want, not what America want. It will come with a pain, but eventually, one day, we'll realize our true freedom. Good things come through a painful process. I'm not a mother. The mothers will tell you that during labor, it's very painful. But once the child is delivered, we forget all of the pain because a beautiful thing came out of this pain. The dignity of an African child can only be restored when we give them back that which belongs to them.
Right now, you can see what they are trying to do to eliminate my good friend Ibrahim Traore. Survived many assassination attempts. But when you are doing good, they'll take you out. It is Samora Moises Machel who once said, when you hear the former colonizers saying you are good, you must pause and ask yourself, what evil are you committing against your people? So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish all of us well. Remember that none of us has a solution to our national problem. It is combined that we can have a solution. But one thing that I'm passionate about is that we must be Kenyan citizens.
Unless there is a plan to go and live on Mars, we do not have a choice. And I hope that this convocation and conversation can take place within the next 4 to 8 weeks. We cannot go to the world's population again making promises and yet saying that this is the most urgent problem facing mankind.
Straight that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
We cannot achieve what we want to achieve if we allow our global community to focus time, resources, everything, technology, on conflict. I think there's a duty for us all to keep our individual countries peaceful, out of conflict, and not export instability to other countries neighboring or far away.
before we can be free from the shackles of the West, we need to be united. The reason why there's so much conflict on the continent, one of the main reasons why I believe there's so much conflict on the continent, when one African country does not agree to bow to the West, the next African country would agree. Let's take AES for instance, when they were delineating from France. The neighboring African countries are supposed to have their back. Leading ECOWAS, Tinubu at that time, closed their borders to them. That was very inhumane. So Macron can sit in France and bring hunger to your doorstep because the next African country will do as he said. Now imagine that now Macron cannot just go to Nigeria and deal with a Nigerian politician. Macron has to deal with one head body to be able to come into Ghana or Nigeria or Abidjan or wherever. It will be so much harder for him to do that. So it's imperative that we unite for our survival as people.
Western media loves portraying Africa as a place that is hopelessly impoverished and always prone to conflict. And while there are certainly issues, I believe that Africa is the future. Let me explain. The first thing you have to understand is just how many Africans there are. 30 years ago, there was roughly as many people living in Europe as there was in Africa. But now there are now 3 times as many Africans compared to Europe, and in 20 years there will actually be 4 times as many. What this means economically is that the average African only needs an economic output that's 1/4 of that of a European in order for the African economy to be larger than Europe. And I think this is super impressive, especially given the disgusting role that Europe has played in Africa through colonization and empire. It's beautiful to see Africa having the potential to overtake Europe. The second thing you also need to understand is for a long time period, it was really just the Western countries that were able to dominate the world economically, politically, and through empire. But now in the last 20 years, we've seen the rise of many economies such as China, India, Russia, Turkey, etc. And what this means is all these countries are competing against each other. And if an African state doesn't like the West, they can just kick them out and bring in a different country in. And if they don't like that country, they can kick them out and bring another country in. So unsurprisingly, for instance, we're actually seeing a number of African countries that are, cutting off relations with European powers and even evicting their military. And because of this, you have to understand that the third fact I want to talk about is we're now at a point where a lot of the fastest growing countries economically in the world are in Africa. According to the most recent figures for this year, 6 of the fastest growing economies are now in that continent. And while I know there's certainly many issues in many other countries in Africa, it's very inspiring to see this happen. We saw this previously with Asia, and that continues to a partial degree with, of course, the rise of China. And we could be very soon seeing that also in Africa as well. But the fourth, and I think the most important thing, is while there's all these factors going on, nothing can be achieved without the will of the people. And certainly we're seeing in Africa a bunch of revolutions are happening that is leading to the kicking out of European imperialists and the collective will of African people. In Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, there have been revolutions where now the revolutionaries hold control. They are, for instance, creating factories, growth, economic opportunities for the common people, no longer just serving the foreign powers. And this is really what's going to take off Africa, is if that happens, then it's completely unstoppable. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out some of my other stuff. I do a lot of stuff on African geography and politics, and I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.
African countries are pushing for nuclear power in what appears to be a blow to the West, who was hoping Africa would embrace their renewable technology instead. But the reason the West is so worried about a nuclear Africa may not be what you think, and if you're an investor, you should really watch this situation closely. First, the background. The West and BRICS are offering Africa 2 different solutions for African energy needs. The West is offering renewables like solar and wind, while BRICS is offering nuclear technology along with more traditional energy sources. So far, Uganda and Egypt are set to join South Africa by the end of this decade as countries powered by nuclear energy as a result of their partnership with Russia and China. And 1/3 of the African nations have had formal discussions with the BRICS coalition for access to nuclear technology. But informally, almost all of the African nations have had some dialogue on eventually adding nuclear power. The main reason that African countries had been hesitant to cut a nuclear deal with BRICS, outside of political pressure from the West, is that a full-scale nuclear plant has generally been prohibitively expensive even when financed. But nuclear technology is advancing more rapidly than the West realizes. As the West struggles to maintain 50-year-old reactor designs, BRICS is coming out with small modular reactors that are more advanced and efficient than anything the West currently utilizes. Essentially, a nation can incrementally add nuclear power piece by piece with greater efficiency by using this new modular technology. And prices are coming down as returns to scale are realized. So an African nation would not need to dive headfirst into nuclear power, they could dip their toes in first. Once the African nations see a proof of concept, they could more easily justify ramping up nuclear power. This brings us back to the West and why they are really against Africa making these deals. First off, they don't want Africa strengthening their relationship with BRICS, as that would undermine the West's current business model. But this is perhaps the most minor reason. Secondly, because nuclear power is carbon neutral, the West would not be able to rope Africa into paying for their carbon credit system. In fact, the West could actually find themselves forced to buy carbon credits from a nuclear-powered Africa, which would be a striking role reversal. Third, the West makes money off of green energy. Using renewables would lock Africa into paying premiums and fees to the Western special interest groups, and because renewables generally have a limited useful life, Africa would need to rely on the West indefinitely to maintain their energy infrastructure if they cut a green energy deal with the West. Lastly, the West cannot compete with BRICS in nuclear energy technology. As the Western world spent decades eviscerating nuclear technology in their home countries, the best nuclear scientists had long been scooped up by Russia and China. So how do I see this from an investor's point of view? If Africa follows the West and buys their renewables, I would see this as a continuation of business as usual in Africa. But if Africa can establish a nuclear energy infrastructure, I feel that it becomes a game changer. Suddenly, Africa would have a more sophisticated energy infrastructure than Europe or America, and that could happen within 1 to 2 decades. I feel that the Western world has politicized energy production so much and regulated businesses so much that they could eventually find themselves passed by Africa in manufacturing, just as China passed the West a few decades ago. And I always invest in the future, not in the past. But what do you guys think? Am I overstating the benefits of nuclear technology while understating the benefits of green Western energy? Do you think African countries should engage in these nuclear deals with BRICS, or are there risks to these deals that should be considered more closely? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if this video provided value to you, give me a like and a follow. That really helps out my channel, and I will see you on the next video.
The most dangerous situation is in Africa, because of course Africa is absolutely the most important continent on the planet. The most important continent to the planet. And the next most important, and therefore the next most at-risk region, is the Middle East. The Middle East and Africa power the whole global economy. They power everything that makes so-called modern life possible. It's all made possible by the Middle East and Africa. And if the West was an actually civilized civilization, that would mean that peace and stability in the Middle East and in Africa should be of paramount importance. Good relations and harmonious dealings and so on, that would be the priority if they were civilized people. But of course the West is not civilized. And if you have something that they need, if you have something that they want, then they do not see you as a friend. They don't see you as a friend that they want to be close to and have good relations with. They see you as an enemy that they want to subjugate. They see the world in a predator-prey paradigm.